I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, October the 9th, 2013. Two IDF soldiers were lightly injured when a mortar shell fired from Syria exploded in the Golan Heights on the northern border with Israel today. One soldier was hit by shrapnel and taken to a local hospital. The second suffered from shock and was treated on site by paramedics. Israel Radio reported that according to an IDF assessment, the mortar fire was not aimed at Israel, but rather was errant fire from fighting between the Syrian army and rebel forces. Since the start of the civil war in Syria in March of 2011, dozens of mortar shells have landed in Israeli territory, but this is the first time that IDF soldiers were injured. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Yellen urged his U.S. counterpart, Defense Minister Chuck Hagel, not to ease up on sanctions on Iran. During a meeting between the two leaders in Washington yesterday, Yellen said any relief in sanctions will lead to the collapse of the sanctions regime. He said we must not fall into the trap of easing up on sanctions as a trust-building measure before the Iranians meet the demands set to them. Hagel assured Yellen that the U.S. will be, quote, clear-eyed and committed to ensuring that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons while Washington pursues diplomacy. And French news agency AFP quoted Pentagon spokesman George Little as saying that the U.S. will not waver from our firm policy to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons.
These are not just statistics to me. We know that long-term unemployment is devastating to workers and their families.
And President Barack Obama is set to nominate Jewish economist Janet Yellen to head the U.S. Central Bank. If confirmed by the Senate, Yellen would be the first woman to head any country's major central bank anywhere in the world. Yellen, who is currently the Federal Reserve's vice chair, would succeed Ben Bernanke, whose term ends January the 31st. Yellen studied economics at Yale and taught at Berkeley for over 10 years before becoming a Fed board governor and then heading President Clinton's Council of Economic Advisors. Three Jewish professors, two of them who are also Israeli, have been awarded the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Scientists Ariel Warshel and Michael Levitt, both of whom hold U.S. and Israeli citizenship, and Martin Karplus, are being recognized for laying the foundations for the development of computers to understand complex chemical processes. The Nobel Academy said the Nobel laureates in Chemistry 2013 have made it possible to map the mysterious ways of chemistry by using computers. Detailed knowledge of chemical processes, they said, makes it possible to optimize catalysts, drugs, and solar cells. Warshel was born on a kibbutz in Israel and fought in the 1967 and 1973 wars. He is currently a professor of chemistry and biochemistry at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. Levitt was born in South Africa and taught at the renowned Weizmann Institute in Rehovot in the 80s and received his Israeli citizenship while there. He is now based at Stanford University. And Karplus fled the Nazis in Austria and came to the U.S. as a child in 1938. He is based at Harvard. Pope Francis once again has expressed his intention to visit Israel. The pontiff told Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein that he would visit the country but did not specify as to when. Edelstein is on an official visit to Italy and the Vatican, where he met with the Pope and invited him to come to Israel and to visit the Knesset. Edelstein also asked the Pope for his help in combating anti-Semitism. Back in July, the Pope also said he would like to come to Israel to mark the 50th anniversary of Pope Paul V's visit to Jerusalem in 1964. Which took place before the Vatican recognized the State of Israel. The Jewish Council for Public Affairs released a new study this week called Reluctant or Repressed: Aversion to Expressing Views on Israel Among American Rabbis. The report was written by research professor of Jewish social policy at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, Stephen M. Cohen, and project manager of the Jewish Theological Seminary's Reframe Initiative, Rabbi Jason Gitlin. It is the first large-scale survey of American rabbis' connection to Israel and their challenges in expressing their views. JCPA President Rabbi Steve Gutto said American rabbis have a great deal of involvement and engagement with Israel, with the vast majority of them having studied there and most feeling very attached to the country. Gutto said, however, though they care deeply about the Middle East and the Jewish state, there is a fear on both sides of the political spectrum, particularly among younger rabbis, that expressing their personal opinions may create a problematic and difficult situation in their synagogues and organizations. Co-author of the report, Yellen, said our communities must continue to find ways to empower those who are reluctant to express themselves openly about Israel, whether because of age or political belief. Adding, rabbis, as the survey reflects, are simply too informed and passionate about Israel to not have their honest voices guiding Jewish Americans' engagement with Israel. A new exhibit devoted to Anne Frank will open next week at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. California Governor Jerry Brown will join the museum for the opening of the exhibit created by the Simon Wiesenthal Center and the Museum on the World of Anne Frank. It is a 60-minute multimedia experience which brings to life the details of Anne's story. The Anne Frank Fonds of Basel, Switzerland, founded by Anne's father, Otto, who was also a strategic partner and supporter of the exhibition, said that it was the most important exhibition about Anne Frank. The foundation said for the first time the history of the Jewish family is with context and a meaningful educational approach comprehensively conveyed through Anne Frank's works. The Jewish Federations of North America released a new survey showing an increase of community endowments in 2012. The annual Survey of Endowment Development released last week showed a 7.6% increase from the previous year and showed that Federation endowments distributed $1.4 billion in 2012 to Jewish and secular organizations locally, nationally, and internationally. Endowment assets grew in 2012 to $14.3 billion, and contributions to endowment programs rose to $1.8 billion. Endowment grants have been used to support programs that advocate for social justice, deliver food and medicine to the needy, fund Jewish education, and provide disaster relief. And finally, tonight on Shalom TV, stay tuned for a special hour edition of In the News with Mark Gala beginning at 6:30 on the recent Pew Research Center report with guest Alan Cooperman, Deputy Director for the Pew Research Center's Religion and Public Life Project. Cooperman will discuss the methodology of Pew's Portrait of Jewish Americans study, as well as some of the study's most dramatic findings. That's coming up at 6:30. And later tonight, Kosher Cookbooks author Helen Nash is on L'chaim at 9, and that's here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. That's Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, October the 9th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.